But also, there is a person that sits, Liz Coyle right there, who sits on the ABI board as a citizens participation member. And there's also the creation of the position called Citizens Participation Advocate, which I currently enjoy. The TADAC is what I'd like to talk with you briefly this morning, and this afternoon. They're not here right now, but we'll talk about them. This is kind of a two-part presentation in that Bruce Gunter of the BAHAB, and if you don't mind me using BAHAB, it's easier than spinning out the other words. He'll come up and speak about them shortly. Members of the TADAC who have experience in a lot of areas, a lot of broad areas in order to be a part and recognize that they have great contributions to make toward the Beltline. They have experience in the areas of parks, trails, planning and development, transit planning and development, finance and business, complex project management, affordable housing, urban planning, arts, culture, historic preservation, green building principles, and other subjects relevant to the Beltline project. And generally speaking, the TADAC's overall role is to make recommendations to the tax allocation distribution, the distribution of tax allocation funds that are made available to the TAD, and that how those proceeds get spent and implemented. They evaluate various work plans of ABI for the Beltline, as well as to establish decision-making tools and to strive toward the efficient and equitable implementation of the Beltline throughout the Atlanta area, i.e. the redevelopment plan. Currently, as you see on the board back there, there are actually this is quite a large board. There are some, I believe there's 38 members on it now. There are authorized for 42 members board, so we have quite a large board. They are divided into 6 subcommittees. Those subcommittees include parks and trails, economic development, transit trails and transportation, design, historic preservation, arts and culture, the community benefits principles, and decision support. Now, I realized earlier we asked for members of the TADAC to stand. That was before a lot of people came in. So if I could just briefly ask for the members of the TADAC board to please stand momentarily to be recognized. Got a few more. Great. Thank you very much. We appreciate your time. These people spent countless hours with us helping to weed through really some difficult issues. We're getting organized, making sure that there are accountability steps along the way. They're honest brokers, and we all are working together to try to make this project a reality. There's a group of people that aren't part of the formal, the codified engagement process. Those would be what we call study group coordinators. We realized fairly early on that we needed to have the study group coordinators do a couple of different things. So what happened is the position that we thought would be simply one of calling meetings, help setting agendas, just coming and kind of passing cookies, etc. Actually kind of morphed into something that required, we believe, a little more time commitment, a little more opportunity to get involved in the nitty-gritty, more give and take and interaction with the community and with ourselves to make sure we're on track. And those are the study group coordinators. Now, I think a few of you may have come in after we started, so if I could briefly just ask you to stand so we can recognize you one more time. Well, there's Al and Simon and Steve. Any more? Saskia is back there. Hi, Saskia. Okay, I believe that's it. Well, thank you very much. We appreciate your time. These are volunteers, folks, and they really do represent a linkage for us in order to maintain some close and get some effective linkages in the community. We're getting that geared up, and we're going to have a lot more work to do in front of us, but we're getting there. What I would like to do now, I've spoken briefly about the TADAC, which you have the members on the screen there. Now I'd like to invite Bruce Gunter to the mic. Bruce is the chairman of the BAHAB and has very excellent experience in that area. He's recently elected. The BAHAB is a group that has made good strides. They're really starting to get to the point where they're engaging more definitively their subject area. I would just like to have Bruce come up and give you a few words.
Thank you, Roland. I'm not even used to the acronym. It's the Beltline Affordable Housing Advisory Board. It's a mouthful, but you could get overwhelmed with acronyms. Just a few quick comments because we've just gotten started. Our task is fairly circumscribed. It has to do with the Affordable Housing Trust Fund that will be created. Every time the TAD bonds are issued, 15% of those proceeds will go into a to-be-created Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And our charge is to come up with criteria, principles, policies, guidelines about how to allocate that inside the Beltline area. That's an important distinction. I want to come back to that in a second. We're appointed there are 4 different appointing bodies: the City of Atlanta, Fulton County, Atlanta Public Schools, and the community, with the input from ANDP, the Atlanta Neighborhood Development Partnership, and AHAND, which is a Association of Neighborhood Development, Community Development Corporations. We have 3 mandates that were set up in the authorizing legislation. As I mentioned, one of them is to come up with criteria, principles, policies, guidelines relative to the creation of this Affordable Housing Trust Fund. We'll report up to the Atlanta Development Authority and to the City Council on that. Secondly, we are mandated to coordinate with other programs in the city, and I'm going to add, and we'll be discussing other affordable housing programs in the state. It is a very complicated affordable housing delivery system already. And if we do not coordinate, we're asking for trouble. So fortunately, that's in the mandate, and that's going to be very, very important, is that we work in conjunction with other existing programs. As a matter of fact, actually, we could piggyback, not create anything new. We could just piggyback on the existing programs if we see fit. Like I said, we've just gotten started, so we haven't determined any of this. Number 3, we're charged with equitable distribution. That's very, very important for obvious reasons. We're excited at the opportunity of providing affordable workforce housing on the 22-mile ring, and you can imagine it's going to look a whole lot different depending on where you are on the ring in terms of land cost, type of housing. Is it owner-occupied? Is it rental housing? More than anything else, it's going to be determined by what that particular community needs. If a particular community has a lot of rental housing, stands to reason we would want to emphasize for sale housing in that particular area. But these are the kind of policies and issues that we've just begun to grapple with, and nothing final has been made by any stretch of the imagination. At the end of the day, there's going to be real housing, tangible housing. I'm a affordable housing developer. That excites me, that we're really going to see affordable workforce housing being put inside the Beltline for families and individuals that perhaps could already live there, and here's a chance for them to stay in the community. At the same time, another outcome, as you could see, would be as a revitalizing agent. The Atlanta Development Authority has economic development plans. Of course, the Beltline has economic development plans. This whole thing is an economic development idea. So how do we work in conjunction with that and the housing element that supports job creation strategies? Obviously, you want to have the housing located near jobs, take advantage of the transit, and create the vaunted live, work, play environments that we now know really, really work and are part of the promise of the Beltline. A couple of the challenges, they're myriad. The first one, I'd already mentioned the complexity. It's going to be very, very difficult. At the end of the day, we have to create a program that the developers can actually use, because they're actually the ones who are going to be building the housing, and so it's market driven in that regard. We can't create something that nobody wants to use. We want to end up with housing after all. I had already mentioned the existing affordable housing delivery system is pretty complex as it is, and here we're coming in with something else.